You're listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner, your source for investing made easy. Here's Andy Tanner.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast where investing is made simple. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. You know, sometimes when you speak, you can tell someone has a smile just by their tone. I'm pumped. I have Jewel Tankard on the phone right now, and we're going to have a conversation. And many of you already know who she is, you know, reality television and Thicker Than Water. But what a lot of people don't know is Jewel's unique in that she has a deep, deep faith, and she uses those principles to say, hey, it's all right to have prosper. And I'm telling you, she dominates. And so, Jewel, it's good to hear your voice again. It's good to be with you. Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Andy. I always love getting together with you to play and have some fun and change some lives, and it's always a great experience. So thanks for having me.
We met through a mutual friend, Kim Kiyosaki, and we had a chance to do an event a few months ago. And I've got to tell you, you can always tell people by who they surround themselves with. And Jewel, I got to tell you, your team is just solid. I mean, they are just positive, and, you know, I want some more of that. That's for sure. They're just awesome. They're all over it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a joy working with you, and a lot of my ladies from the network came over and learning from you. And so, yeah, we definitely, it's mutual, that's for sure.
So let's do
Love
this.
The connection. Grateful for it.
Let's do this. What's your story from the start to where you are today?
Well, you know, I grew up, I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur, so I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I watched my parents be in business my whole life. I remember them having a chain of record stores at the time, and they were downtown Detroit. My parents were actually the first African Americans to have a business downtown Detroit, and called LaGrange Records and Tapes. And so at the time, growing up, they would have all the Motown greats come in and sign autographs, everybody from Diana Ross to the Jackson Fives, because you guys remember all those guys came from Detroit, the Temptations,
Motown.
So I grew up, exactly, yes. I grew up seeing my parents work really, really diligently and work consistently as a team together. And so I really admired the life that they were able to provide for us. We went to, you know, some of the best private schools and lived in beautiful homes with housekeepers and cooks and drivers. And I remember one day at 19 years old, my parents coming in pretty much and saying, you know, we've taken a real hit and in our business, and we're losing everything. And I was like, what is going on? You know, I thought we were rich, you know. And I remember having my Volvo was repossessed. My mom and dad had his and her Rolls Royces and his and her Mercedes at the time. All of that was being repossessed. We were living still in this big, beautiful home, but it was in the winter, and Detroit in the winter is very cold, and the heat was off. So we literally had to boil water. My dad went through a very, very severe depression. And I remember just asking my mom, Andy, a lot of questions like, hey, did we have any money saved, or did we have anything paid off? Did we have any investments? And I remember distinctly her answer just was, you know, your father said this, your father thought this, your father said this. And I quickly began to realize, Andy, that my mom did not trust her own financial instinct, that she didn't trust her own gut. And I was like, you know, this is a real problem. And I was angry with her for a while because my dad naturally, even today, is a very good producer. And my mom naturally would have been a very good manager and investor. But because she did not trust her own instinct, she didn't have any money, quote unquote, set aside or anything. And so it was a devastating time for our family. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm going to have to get another financial plan. And quite honestly, at the time, it was men. And I started dating these drug dealers and for a couple years. And of course, that ended up going, you know, it's fun for a while. Then it went south. And I just had to ask myself, like, Jewel, you went from your dad taking care of you to men taking care of you. Like, why can't you take care of yourself? You know? And for my financial education, hunger, fire and thirst really came from, Andy.
You know, let's talk about that hunger and fire and thirst, because you're a champion for really not just entrepreneurship, but it's like girl power with you, man. I mean, you are like women. You know what I'm saying? You and Kim are a lot alike that way. It's like, all right, women, hey, quit screwing around. You're every bit, just don't be subordinate. Rock and roll, go out and shine, which I agree with. That's exactly how the attitude should be. And I love it. Talk about this. Talk about the pastor side of things. I mean, it's because you don't see it. You're like not a normal pastor. Okay, look, my dad was a pastor. Okay, my dad was a pastor. He taught religion growing up. And, I don't know. I'm not a good churchgoer today. Hopefully I'm still a good guy. But you're not like normal, Jewel. You're not like the normal type of thing, hellfire damnation. So talk about that a little bit.
No. Yes. Nobody wants to be beat up, and religion, and I'm not really a proponent of religion. I'm about people developing a real relationship with Christ. To know that he's there to help us. He loves us. He made us. He knows what we need. He knows he puts the desires and the dreams in our hearts. And, there's a scripture that talks about with loving kindness have I drawn them. So the best way you win somebody is to love them. There's another scripture that talks about that his desire is for us to prosper, Andy, in every area, in spirit, soul, and body. So he doesn't just want us to be rich and, our relationship with him and our relationship with our family and friends, but he wants us to actually have material wealth as well. Jesus actually walked the earth as a wealthy man. There are more scriptures on money in the Bible than most people realize, and I've gone after pursuing that. There's so many scriptures. The Bible talks about how he has given us the power to get wealth. That means he's given us the ability, he's given us the insight, he's given us the intelligence. In the book of Daniel, it talks about how God told Daniel, not only you're going to learn about me as your God, but I want you to learn about the language of the times. Daniel was brought to the government. He sat with kings. They end up making him a ruler because he understood the language of money. He understood the language of the times. He wasn't irrelevant. He wasn't having this supernatural spiritual experience that was separate from God. He merged those worlds together. And that's what I want people to know. I want people to know that it is God's plan for them to be wealthy. It is a complete lie that you have to be broke to be close to him. And to be honest with you, until I got that revelation, I wasn't interested in anything that the church was talking about because I was not interested in serving a broke down God and that you had to be sad and depressed. And when I found out that that was a lie, I was like, I'm with this God. I'm with this plan. And I want people to know that.
People are hunting. They hunt for teachers, and they say when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Jewel's website is jeweltankard.com. She has a ebook that is called Jumpstart, Jewel Tankard's Jumpstart. And that's a cool sounding name because it's like a beginning, right? And it's fast. And it's just quick tips for wealth building. So as you listen to her personality, you can tell it's contagious. She's a ball of freaking fire. And go to her website, jeweltankard.com, and check out the ebook because you really are a leader and you're about inspiration. The word inspiration means to put breath into people. And I just remember when we met and I was just around you and your team, I was inspired. I was like, these guys, it's just go. It's just let's go, do, yes, make mistakes, whatever. That's awesome stuff. And whether a person, wherever you get your fuel from, whether it's your faith or whether it's your goals or your family, whatever, let that burn. So let's talk about this. Hey, tough time in America right now. Let's talk about a little bit about the racism issue and all these things. How's that been for you and your team? What are your feelings on that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it has been a very challenging year, but also a year of tremendous opportunity. I definitely hate seeing a lot of the senseless hatred and murders happen to Black men, and particularly, and even some Black women like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd most recently. And I think that this racism issue honestly has been going on for a long time, but because we have social media, we're exposed to it, right? And we see it And we're seeing it way more than what we've ever seen before, right? But I think it's always been there. I think it's just now we, like I said, now we actually see it. And so my thing is I want to empower people because though racism, I definitely believe it exists. I actually had a situation that just happened to me about a month ago where I won't go into all of it. But the point is that, I had to make a decision after that situation happened, and it potentially could have been very violent. It was a hostile situation with the white gentleman yelling at me and in my face and all of this. But after a couple of days after that, and it was emotionally traumatic, I had to make a decision. First of all, I'm not going to be a victim. And I think that if you really want real freedom, then you have to educate people, because anytime you're waiting for the government or somebody to come and give you permission to be successful, to give you permission to win, to give you permission, then you're in trouble. And if you really want to bring change, you're going to have to bring it on a local level, on a state level. It's not just a national level. It's going to have to be brought on every level. And you're going to have, and the way you put people in the office is through money. Money is what has brought so many laws and policies. You got to remember, slavery was all about profit. It was about greed. It was about one man saying, let me dominate another man for the gain of my own profit. And so what we have to do, I feel responsible as being an African-American woman, is I want to empower all women, no matter what color, but I definitely want women of color to know, listen, you're going to have to, at the end of the day, and I don't like what's going on. I don't agree with what's going on, but I think that one of the best answers that you can do is make sure that you first empower and educate yourself so that you can bring change to yourself, to your family, and to your community. So though change needs to happen externally, the best demand that you can put on yourself is to yourself to change. Because I can either stay a victim or I can become a victor, but that's going to take me taking some action steps.
Dang, that's powerful stuff. It's interesting. You bring up a really good point here that I've struggled with, because I had a wonderful, way intelligent professor, Teresa Ghilarducci, and she's smart, man. She's an academic, and she studies pension problems. And her and I couldn't be more in agreement on the problem, and we probably couldn't be more in disagreement on the solution. And I've struggled with this, with my own ethics, and I'm always trying to say, am I right or am I wrong? But Teresa feels like the way to fix the retirement program is through government change, right? Let's get policies, let's get all that. And I think, it would be ideal if that could happen. But and it was nice because she and I can have different views, but we still get along great. But I was kind of more on your side, saying, look, I ain't going to wait for the government to do stuff for me. Okay, look, it might be unfair, and it is, let's just say it is unfair. Life is unfair. My parents were not well off at all. And it's tougher because, my parents knew nothing about entrepreneurship. So you got to fight and crawl and make mistakes and lose money. But I would tell people the same thing you did, is look, life is not fair and it sucks. And we got to do everything we can to bring equality and fairness. As an individual, I have a choice, though. I can wait or I can move. And I had no idea what you'd say on it, but that's, what'd you say? Don't be a victim, be a victor. That's huge for empower, and that's an awesome thing. Okay, let's talk about this. And this has been good for me. I struggled particularly with the George Floyd thing. That one I saw it on Facebook, and I had no idea what it was, and I started watching it. I'm like, whoa, and my level of dismay is minute by minute. I'm like, dude, where's the empathy? And that's a big I think my dad was a preacher, and when I thought about Jesus and the story of Jesus where he did all that suffering, a lot of people focus on the idea that the suffering was, punishment and sin. But actually, another way you could look at that is, that's perfect empathy. Because no matter what wrongs you have, no matter what pain you've gone through, that tradition says there's someone that understands that, and you can build on that. So I don't get to church like I should. But I just think, Jewel, right now, with everything that's going on, how about a little empathy for everybody? How about putting yourself in someone else's shoes? And if we just did that, I think this stuff would be a lot better. Okay, let me ask you this. Bible says, love of money, root of all evil. To take your swing at that one.
I think really, the interpretation that I get, I don't think that God is saying that that money. First of all, it doesn't say money itself is evil, and what he was saying is that if it leads you to greed, to want to dominate another human being, or dominate another race, or dominate a gender, well, then that's wrong. Right? Like we talked about slavery. If I want to oppress somebody so that I can profit, that's wrong. For the result of, profitable gain, that's wrong. Clearly. He talks about the deceitfulness of riches. So that scripture would go along with, I'm willing to do anything for money. That's wrong. I'm willing to sell drugs for money. That's wrong. Or I'm willing human trafficking, prostitution. Yeah, not because all those people are doing it for profit. So in that case, those are the cases that fit that scripture. There's also another scripture that says money answers all things. It answers the educational issue. It answers social issues, art, science, like every area of life, your quality of life, what you eat, what you drink, where you sleep, where you go on vacation, what you drive. You know what I mean? All those things are impacted by money or the lack thereof. So it's not money itself. It's just saying, don't be willing to do anything to anybody at any time for money.
And as you say, there's a lot of great messages there. I love the parable of the talents. Take your talent and expand it. Don't bury it. Don't be shy. You're not shy. You're gonna let your light shine for sure. Let's talk to women. Okay. One of the things that is really interesting in my asset class, which is mostly stocks and options, is I'm not kidding. I used to give a lot of seminars, and I've given more than one where there's a lot of people in there, and I've had it not happen every time, but I've actually had it where no women have come. None. Like all men. Wow. You have, Maria Bartiromo and stuff, and a few women are getting on CNBC, but I got to tell you, Wall Street is very much dominated by men. Speak to the women. Yeah. I personally think, women are different than men. Okay, they're equal, but they're different. Yeah. For example, women can multitask better than a man. They're just wired different, man. I'm telling you, my wife, she can have 25 things going and run them all perfectly. Man, I can barely get one thing going and get it right. But talk to the women. If you're a woman,
absolutely.
Like you talked about your mom and how that inspired you and how you feel about it, what's your message to women when it comes to entrepreneurship?
So, I want them to know it's for them. It's really for them. It's not for, and to trust their own instinct. You know what I mean? Trust your own instinct. You do not have to have the permission of another human being, whether it be your husband or your boyfriend or whatever. You don't need their permission. You do not. And I think that's what I hear from a lot of women. And I don't think it's anything wrong. I'm very close to my husband. That's my honey. But I never asked him permission. Honey, can I learn how to trade foreign currency? Can I learn how to trade cryptocurrency? That is my right as a woman, as a human being, having my own brain. I have my own brain. And I can think for myself.
Entrepreneurship is about serving other people. When you think about it, greed, I'll just throw out my opinion. Greed is wanting to get a lot for a little. Greed is wanting to get something for nothing. Greed is when I want to, on the capitalist side, you've got these, people who abuse their freedom, and they want to get, everything for nothing, right? They just want to exploit. On the other side of it, you have other people that never invest because they want everything for free, and that greed of wanting something for nothing, that's a big deal. When people realize that it's about serving others, that look, if you want to get rich, build iPads for people and give them a window to the universe, right? If you want to get rich, serve.
Absolutely.
And women have every bit the right to go out and serve and solve problems and be compensated for that as men do. I just like to see more just have that power and that energy that you have to say, look, I don't care what my circumstances are. I don't care. I'm going to go serve people. I'm going to be successful. End of story. You use the word dominate a lot, when I've watched your videos, and we're going to dominate. Let's go out and get it done. So that type of, where do you get that energy from?
Probably my goals and desires. God has put in my heart a lot of big goals, a lot of big desires. I've got my eyes set on the billion flow because there's a lot that I want to do in the inner city of Detroit, especially where I come from. But there are a couple inner cities that I definitely want to get my hands on. I have an organization, the Jewel Tankard Foundation, where we focus on tech for teens. And this will be our second year, we're working to focus on giving technology to those students in the inner city that don't have access to it. Because, if they don't have access to it, they're not going to use it. If they're not going to use it, then they can't be the next Silicon Valley or Google or Microsoft. And so we've got to make sure that's my responsibility and I've taken that on as a responsibility. I'm not waiting for anybody to do anything. You know what I mean? I'm taking responsibility to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a part of this change here. I'm going to do my part. And so, yeah, I've got my sights on the billion flow, and I just want women to know that they can do it. A lot of times women, Kim and I talk about this all the time. A lot of women end up being, better investors than the men. And this is not about leaving your husband or not sharing it with him. You can share with him, honey, guess what I decided to do, but to be sitting around and waiting for his permission to learn something is just completely unacceptable. It's just, I can't even fathom it. And here's the thing, Andy, I hear this from women all the time. I hear from millennials in their 20s. I hear it from boomers. I try to expect it from boomers because I'm like, okay, you guys came from that generation. But when I hear from millennials and Gen Zs, I'm like, child, are you serious? You are literally going to sit there and wait for somebody else to give you permission to learn. I can't with you.
I love you, Jewel. It's so awesome. Yeah. Why, here's an interesting thing about you is you understand the education component. I think that's another thing that probably brought you and Kim together to be friends is your education advocates to say, look, it's okay to learn this stuff. And I think it's a big deal that, Detroit is like a perfect place to plant those seeds. Detroit's been beat up. I mean, when you look at the cities, I'm a big critic of 401ks and pensions that you depend on a company or a government. And you look at what happened when Detroit, their police officers and their firemen, they took their pensions, basically declared bankruptcy. Look, we're restructuring this for you guys. They go, wait. I'm walking into burning buildings with my fire hose my whole life, and now you're saying I'm not going to have the same pension that I had before? And the Supreme Court said, nope, that's the law. So when you have a municipality, I don't think there's been a bigger bankruptcy on the municipal level. San Bernardino went bankrupt, Stockton, California went bankrupt, but Detroit, that's got to be the biggest municipal bankruptcy ever. And if you ever want to send a message to people, it says, look, you can't trust your government to take care of you. They can't even take care of themselves. They're not literate. Financial literacy in Detroit, what do you say?
Oh, man. Yeah, we got a long way to go. And what's crazy about it is they actually, if you tour downtown right now, it literally is kind of being considered the Midwest of Silicon Valley. You'd be surprised. Major tech companies have moved down there. And it's actually beautiful. Like, it's really coming along.
Yeah.
But it just blows my mind that most of the people in the inner city don't know that's going on. in their own city. So talking to them, loving on them, and getting them to take a more aggressive role and letting them know that this is their city, that they can get in on this. The thing about oppression that I hate, it's almost like you've heard the story about the elephant. Elephant is huge, elephant is strong, elephant can do all kinds of amazing things, but if you tie him to a pole, and he's there year after year, and then finally you let him go, he's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because he's been trained to stay in spot. So a lot of the healing that needs to happen within, people of color is, also getting them to realize you don't have to stay here anymore. You can move forward. You can become aggressive. At the same time, talking and teaching to the oppressor and challenging them to say, it is not right for you to dominate another human being, whether it's socially, economically, in any way. So there's healing that has to take place on both, it's almost like the woman, and in my last marriage, I was abused for 2 years. I was in that relationship. And when I got out of that relationship, it took a minute for me to, this is what you think. This is what you want. This is what you can do. Because, and I'm blessed that I was just in it for 2 years. I'm on the board for the domestic violence shelter here locally. And my heart goes out for women in abusive situations. Because you say, girl, you shouldn't leave him. Girl, you should just beat it. Girl, you should just beat that.
That's easier said than done. That's easy. Yeah,
exactly.
That's
He's worked
easier
on
said
their
than
psychology.
Done. Yeah. Jewel, I'm so appreciative of your example. As I've listened to you, the message I've got is, entrepreneurship, you can be a victor, not a victim. And I love that for that reason. If I'm a woman and I go into the workforce, I'm going to get paid less than a man. Now, is that right or wrong? That's dead wrong. Yeah. Anyone with a brain can say, well, that's wrong. If they're doing the same job with the same competency, they should get the same compensation. I mean, anyone with a brain can see that. Yeah. And so on one hand, you say, okay, I got two things I can do, not one. Well, I can fight that battle for change, and I got to fight that battle. But I'll tell you, in the meantime, if I become an entrepreneur, man, it doesn't matter anymore. I can just serve. And if I serve well, I'm going to make it. And you're evidence of that. That you can fight both battles. You can fight the social battle, but you can also fight the individual one. And you say, what, enough. I'm going to go and I'm not going to let other people control me. And I hate the idea of blame the victim, because that's not what it is. She got abused or attacked because she wore a short skirt. Look, you can wear whatever freaking skirt you want to wear. You should be able to do that safely. That's right. So we're not in the victim blaming. But what we are saying is, the reality is, hey, you can do things. You can grow. You can serve. You can become wealthy in your own way. Yeah. Well, you're awesome. Yeah. What would you give? What advice would you give? Let me ask this. What advice would you give a young woman, teens, college age, early 20s? What advice would you give a young woman in this environment with everything they see, social media? What would you tell a young woman?
I would tell her to start now. Start asking questions. Get around people that you admire. Just because somebody has a Benz and a nice house doesn't mean they've really accumulated real wealth. Study the wealthy, because if you want to become wealthy, which I think everybody should want to do that, because it impacts everything from where your children go to school, to the extracurricular activities, to whether or not you can go to Barcelona for a vacation, or Alabama. Nothing wrong with Alabama. But if you want to raise a child that's a global thought leader, then they're going to have to be exposed to the globe. You cannot expect for somebody to become something that you don't expose them to. It happens, but they have a much greater advantage if you take them and you expose them to the finer things of life. And so kind of determine, what does your life look like in 5 years? What's your net worth? What are you going to do? How many lives are you going to change? Because I think if you make people and you make purpose a part of, the plan that's in your heart, you're going to always win. I find myself always winning, Andy. You always find yourself winning, because we're about the people business. And then at the same time, we want to make sure that we're blessed and we're doing well. And you know what? You're putting that out there, and you're going to walk into it.
I really believe that people need to find a teacher that resonates with them. And one of the goals of the podcast is to give people a chance to taste and experience, some of the great personalities and leaders out there. And so if Jewel resonates with you, if you're a young woman or a young man for that, what's interesting is I listen to your advice, start now, get going. That works for men too. It works for white guys, black guys, Hispanic guys.
Yeah.
That advice you gave is actually for anyone of any gender, really. Start. But if you resonate with Jewel, go to jeweltankard.com and get her a best-selling ebook, Jewel Tankard's Jumpstart, Quick Tips for Wealth Building. And like you said, start hanging out with people that have what you have and that are where you want to be, and feed on her energy. I was so excited. I got up this morning and Marcy looked at me and she's grinning. She's like, "You got Jewel today, don't you?" She knew I was excited about it. I'm telling you, your team is money. No, I'm serious. We had such a good time, and it's so cool to talk with someone that's understands Forex and all that type of stuff. And you're just chic. When you talk about the finer things of life, you've got great taste. And if you and my wife ever got together shopping, I don't know if that'd be a good thing or not. Okay, I don't know if that could be dangerous, Jewel. That could be dangerous.
I know, right?
But I'll tell you this. Neither of you gonna ask permission. It's awesome. Oh, it's so money.
I love it.
JewelTankard.com. You've been so good to spend time with us. Last words. Any last words for healing of the country and what we can do to love each other a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's respect each other as human beings, whether or not we have a different skin color, if we're, whether if it's a man respecting a woman or vice versa. Let's just respect human beings. Let's respect humanity. And like you said, let's be empathetic and just know that there's still time to meet your goals. We still got a whole quarter left. This is not time to go into chill mode, to go into holiday time. We are pushing stronger and harder than ever. I have very serious goals for Christmas. I'm a big holiday buff. And I can tell you what, there's nothing like a bunch of money for Christmas. So, let's go after our goals.
Oh, you're awesome, Jewel. I hope everyone's enjoyed our conversation and your energy and your spirit. You're truly inspiring just the way you go about it. So it's been awesome to have you on the Cashflow Academy podcast. I hope everyone was able to glean something from our conversation. I'm so appreciative of the message of hope and personal power. We certainly have a lot of battles, very serious battles to fight as a society. And as those unfold, hopefully there's progress. But the big message of hope is that me as an individual, you as an individual, we have power. We have power to empathize with all people. We have power to serve, and we have power to build our businesses, invest well, and build a future that is bright. So with that, we'll see you guys next week. I'm Andy Tanner, and thanks again for listening to the Cashflow Academy podcast.
You've been listening to the Cashflow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner. For more information on investing made easy, go to thecashflowacademy.com.